organs use which energy source during fed state, fasting state, or starvation state? All the organs in the body in fed state mostly utilize glucose, except heart and brain. So brain also uses glucose for fed state, but heart uses fatty acids in case of fed state. So in case of fed state, it is only heart that uses fatty acid. Apart from that, all the organ uses glucose in case of fed state. In fed state, glucose is available to the tissues, but heart is very important. It needs to pump all the time. That is why it is not dependent on glucose. It takes up fatty acid for its functioning. So in fed state, brain uses glucose, liver uses glucose, muscle uses glucose, adipose tissue uses glucose, and RBC uses glucose. Now remember one formula, RBC uses glucose in every state because there is no mitochondria. So in fasting state also it uses glucose, as there is no mitochondria for fatty acid utilization, and it uses glucose as there is no mitochondria, so cannot use the ketone bodies also. Now in case of fasting state, it almost uses fatty acids, and in case of starvation we use ketone bodies or fatty acid. So in case of fasting, F for fatty acid. Fed state, we know we have a lot of glucose, so almost all the tissue except heart uses glucose. In fasting state, almost all the tissue uses fatty acid except RBC, because there is no mitochondria, it will use glucose. But apart from the RBC, we also have brain that uses glucose in case of the fasting state. So heart we know uses fatty acid already, and fasting state we have all the tissues using fatty acid, such as liver using fatty acid, muscle using fatty acid, adipose tissue using fatty acid, but RBC uses glucose in every state. Starvation, we know we have ketone bodies. So ketone bodies for brain, ketone bodies for heart, then liver uses amino acids, muscle uses either fatty acid or can use ketone bodies. Adipose tissue, fatty acid, and RBC uses glucose because there is no mitochondria, so they cannot use the ketone bodies. Fatty acid or can, we know we have ketone bodies. So ketone bodies for brain, ketone bodies for heart, then liver uses amino acids, muscle uses either fatty acid or can use ketone bodies. Adipose tissue, fatty acid, and RBC uses glucose because there is no mitochondria, so they cannot use the ketone bodies. Now certain questions that have been asked. For fetal heart, the fuel is glucose. In case of heart failure, the fuel is glucose. Now we know heart uses fatty acid during fed as well as during fasting. But here in case of heart failure, the heart uses glucose. RBC always uses glucose in any state. Retina is completely dependent on the glucose as the fuel source. In resting muscle, the preferred fuel is fatty acids. The major source for heart is fatty acid. Apart from heart, fatty acid is the source for renal cortex as well as the adipose tissues. So fatty acid is the source for heart, renal cortex and adipose tissue. Heart uses which source of energy during starvation? See, heart uses fatty acids. Heart uses fatty acid for fed state, fatty acid for fasting, but heart uses ketone bodies for starvation. And which ketone bodies mainly? Acetoacetate.